Hello, DHS!
And welcome to the last episode of the school year.
Summer is just a few short weeks away, and while I had a good school year, I can't wait for it to be over. Now, let's take a look at some recent local, national, and international news.
A U.S. cruise ship owned by the Church of Scientology was quarantined by the Caribbean island of St. Lucia after a case of measles was reported on board. Over 300 passengers and crew members were prohibited from leaving the ship on April 30th. This follows a February measles outbreak in the Philippines that has resulted in 338 deaths.
On April 16th, Special Prosecutor Todd Flood was fired from heading a criminal investigation of the Flint water scandal. The water crisis began in April of 2014, and Flood was hired 2 years after. In the past 5 years, the contamination of Flint River has been linked to an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, and in turn, 12 reported deaths.
On April 26, Global Growers, an Atlanta organization dedicated to helping refugee farmers, suffered from a devastating flood that washed out their main farm, Bamboo Creek. The program is currently seeking financial assistance to provide support for farmers and buy resources to help get the land back in business.
Over spring break, members of the performing arts at DHS went to the Big Apple.
While they're in New York, they explored the city and attended multiple Broadway shows.
Here is Sari Talkerman with more information.
Over spring break, the Decatur Performing Arts students went to New York to learn more about Broadway. In this segment, you will hear from 3 students about their experiences on the trip.
I went to New York when I was 7 years old with my dad. We went to visit some of his family. It was really nice. We stayed in the Bronx, and that's where his family's from. The New York trip this time wasn't like this, was very grand, and we got to explore more than I did when I was 7. You know, I couldn't be running through Chelsea when I was 7 years old. But I loved it. I loved it the first time, and I love it again.
Well, I went to New York around Brooklyn when I was maybe 9 years old, and I recall not liking it very much. I think most of that has to do with just kind of having a very strict schedule with my parents. So compared to that, the Decatur High New York trip was actually a lot of fun, since I got to hang out with friends and they gave us a lot more free time than I expected.
I've always been interested in pursuing musical theater as a profession, and this trip really helped to solidify that for me. Because seeing shows that have changed lives and really meant something to people really showed me once again how important theater is and the level of connectivity the audience can get with the stage. It's really cool.
My favorite part of the New York trip was getting to go and sort of find places to eat and wandering around certain parts of the city like Times Square and just seeing all the different sights and the city life and stuff, and that was neat.
My favorite part of the trip would have to be the workshops we did with real Broadway actors. It was such a good learning experience for me to get to interact with people who've already made it into the business and learn all of these tricks that are going to be so useful for me in the future.
It's taught me that for them, being on Broadway, while it is a very big thing, it's also not the greatest thing in the world for them. They truly just love performing, and I think that's something I never really thought about. It's not about where it is, it's about why you love doing it.
I learned a lot about Broadway from this trip and this experience. I learned that regional theaters hire out of New York, which I didn't know that, and that's going to be super important for the audition process in the future.
I didn't know that standbys were a thing. On Broadway, there's people who sit in the theater for hours and they don't even get to go on. So that was something very new to me. I also, I expected the city to smell worse, and it didn't smell as bad as I thought it would. So that was nice.
I feel a lot more sure about my future as an actor after this trip because it really reaffirmed all the things that I care about. Seeing the prom and seeing how it carried a message that's so important while still being really fun and upbeat. It's really cool, and it really helped remind me why I love this and why this is what I want to do with my life.
I feel a little bit more sure. It lets me know that there is a place for me. I think that I don't fit lots of what is considered the industry standards. I'm very large and loud and black, and and that's not something that we see a lot in lots of mainstream media or even the bigger Broadway shows. But just meeting the other actors or seeing shows, I saw that there is a place for me to fit in somehow, some way, and that made me very excited.
For the deck, this was Sari Talkerman.
Thanks for tuning in to our last episode of the year.
As always, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out more stories on 310.org.
From our crew, have a great summer.
And we'll see you next year on
The Deck. Summer, 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 summer.
That was so much better in my head.